It is Thursday, September the 19th, 2019. Welcome to Council. We have quite a few items on the agenda tonight, so we'll get right to work. Any disclosure of conflict of interest? Seeing none, disclosure of new business. Matters arising from the minutes from our September 5th meeting. Councillor Tate.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Schattenberg, that the minutes of the regular meeting of Woodstock City Council held on September 5th, 2019 be adopted.
Thank you. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. Unanimous. Then we have additions to the agenda. Councillor Tate.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Schattenberg, that the following item be added to the agenda: Delegation B, Delegation C, and Department Report A2.
Thank you. You've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. And our first delegation tonight, we have Carl Harris and Daisy regarding the community free table and the picnic at the river. Welcome.
Thank you. Council and friends and council. We had a lot of fun on Sunday, and Daisy? Okay. A lot of fun here on Sunday with Woodstock Police Services, and take a picture with Daisy and me. The Pickett River is located at Dundas Street, just down the street from the Troop and the Museum Square is. We meet every Tuesday from about 5 o'clock, well, before 5 o'clock to 6, 7 o'clock, 7:30. So we be patient when we're being in the city. So God has called me and said, is this Woodstock? Drug dealing or homelessness and paddlers, we here. So keep in mind. And Daisy was here. That's it. That's it? Yeah. Okay.
Well, thank you very much for the information, Carl.
Thank you.
Questions of council? Councillor Talbot.
Worship through to Carl. Thank you for coming and speaking tonight, Carl. You
Yeah.
come and join our audience many times, you and Daisy, and
Sure, yeah.
you watch over us all the time, so it was nice to hear from you tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Daisy, for not mooing too loud in the council chambers. So, our next delegation is Barbara Rosser regarding the application for official plan amendment for 1180 Nellis Street. Welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just bear with me while I bring up the site plan that pertains to this matter. Perhaps I'll get started while the plan is appearing. My name is Barbara Rosser. I'm the planning consultant for 1822094 Ontario Inc. And I'm also the agent for these proposed applications, the proposed official plan amendment and the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. The property, as you know, is located at 1180 Nellis Street in Woodstock. It's bounded by Lansdowne Avenue and Nellis Street, and it's just under 0.4 of a hectare. It's a fairly irregular parcel, and the proposed development as depicted by the preliminary site plan is a 6-story apartment building with 46 units. This land is vacant and has been undeveloped since at least 1966. It was designated as low-density residential by the Oxford County Official Plan and zoned as special local commercial C1-6 up until 2015, when it was redesignated to high-density residential and put into a special R4 zone category, and that was based on a 5-story, 29-unit apartment building proposal. In the fall of 2018, my client and I and other staff began consultation with regard to a 6-story, 46-unit apartment building. And it became apparent that both an official plan amendment and a zoning bylaw amendment would be necessary in order to facilitate that proposal. In February of 2019, we proceeded with the necessary applications supported by a preliminary site plan, preliminary building elevations, sightline analysis, shadow impact analysis, and a Phase 1 environmental site analysis. The plan that was submitted in 2019 went through further revision. It was initially based on a 1.1 parking ratio, so 1.1 parking spaces per dwelling unit, and it became apparent through staff discussions that we should try to achieve more parking. And the plan that you see there is based on 1.3 parking spaces per dwelling unit. In order to support that proposal, because as council will be aware, your zoning standard is 1.5, we did undertake a parking study. The firm of Paradigm, which is well experienced in this area, produced a parking study in August 2019. And the planning report that's before you tonight from staff indicates that the version that went to 1.3 did not include the amenity area calculation. And so the plan that you see here does include that calculation, and it shows that we're approximately 60 square meters over what would be required according to your zoning bylaw. The Planning Act approvals proposed, again, official plan amendment to take it from 5-story limitation to 6-story. And as council is likely aware, your high-density residential policies would allow up to 8 stories. However, there is a maximum density calculation that has to be taken into account as well. The zoning bylaw amendment is also required to increase the height from 5 to 6 stories to address the front yard, interior side yard, landscaped open space, and the number of parking spaces that are proposed. If council elects to support the official plan amendment to county council and to ultimately pass the zoning bylaw amendment, then we'll be proceeding expeditiously with site plan approval. And it will address all of the detailed matters that are subject to site plan control, including fencing and landscaping. There have already been fairly productive discussions between my client and the Kingdom Hall to the south with regard to those very matters. The planning report that you're going to be considering tonight it's a positive planning report, and so we certainly are in support of that. It points out that the site is already designated as high-density residential. The shadow impact study established that there were marginal and limited shadow impacts upon neighboring residential, which of course is the priority. Otherwise, impacts were limited to primarily street and adjoining industrial uses and to the site itself, but they were all within acceptable levels. Your official plan puts maximum high-density net at 150 units per hectare and no less than 70. And this proposal comes in at 125. So we're well under the maximum, but we're in excess of what your plan says is the minimum. In terms of land use compatibility, which is always relevant to official plan amendments, this is a mixed land use area, industrial to the east, institutional uses to the south, and then multiple residential densities in the surrounding area. As far as the proposed rezoning, the proposal that you see on the screen differs from the prior proposal because it's further back from Nellis Street and closer to Lansdowne. That was reflective of the site plan at the time, and also the 5-story limitation because it was further ahead on the property was required in order to avoid shadow impacts on adjoining properties, I understand. The Nellis Street setback that you see on this plan is approximately a little bit more than 17 meters versus the 10 and a half from the original proposal 4 years ago. The interior side yard accommodations within the zoning in the front yard are really due to the site configuration, which is irregular. The interior side is on the south side, and then the front yard is on the east side. So again, we've taken it quite a lot closer to Lansdowne than had originally been the case. The traffic study that I've mentioned by Paradigm examined observed parking usage in 3 other Woodstock developments of fairly similar size, and usage ranged at between 0.9 spaces per unit down to as low as 0.53 spaces per unit. And that would certainly indicate that 1.3 spaces per dwelling unit would be appropriate, and probably exceeds what should be the case for a development like this, but we certainly respect the zoning bylaw as it is now. In summary, my opinion is that the proposed official plan amendment and proposed zoning bylaw amendment would be consistent with the provincial policy statement and in conformity with the Oxford County official plan. They would represent sound land use planning and would avoid undue impacts upon surrounding uses, would represent efficient utilization of a long vacant site, and would make use of existing services that are already available. It would be an opportunity in the neighborhood for aging in place and would respond to needs of the baby boomer target population. At the public meeting, it was interesting that there was one gentleman that came up afterwards and said, well, I live close by and I'd like to downsize, and this would suit my needs quite well. This area is walkable, has good public transit connections, and I guess my final comment is that my client is a fellow who has undertaken similar projects in the City of London, Elgin County, and elsewhere in Oxford County. He employs very high standards of landscaping, fencing, etc., and will absolutely proceed with site plan approval immediately upon getting a positive indication from council that the project could go ahead. So thank you, Your Worship. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to entertain them.
Well, thank you. Questions of council? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And our next delegation is Rena Nizovic regarding 54 Pebble Beach Court. Let me know how close I was with the pronunciation.
Pretty close. My husband says Knezovic. Or Knezovich. I don't even know. After 38 years of marriage, I still don't know. Anyways, good evening, Mayor and members of the council. My name is Rena Knezovich. I live at 45 Pebble Beach Court, and I am here tonight representing the homeowners in the vicinity of 54 Pebble Beach Court who oppose the zone change of Residential Zone 1 to Special Residential Zone 2. My husband and I have owned our home on Pebble Beach Court for 20 years now, as have many of our neighbors. We chose this neighborhood to raise our children during their teenage years because it was a quiet, family-friendly community. This has not changed over the years, because we have seen many families of all ages make this neighborhood their home. The residents of Pebble Beach Court, Anderson Street, Fifth Avenue, and surrounding area purchased their homes in this residential R1 zone because we felt it was safe, quiet place to raise our families or just enjoy our retirement years. For the record, we submitted a petition that has signatures from 69 addresses objecting to 54 Pebble Beach Court obtaining a zone change from Residential Zone 1 to Special Residential Zone 2. Neighbors have noticed over the past year that the existing dwelling at 54 Pebble Beach Court has had extensive renovations completed to it. And shortly after, we also noticed that 2 different families were living in the house at the same time. one of which was observed moving out not too long ago. As per the report presented by Andrea Hatchler, the development planner, we now know that this single detached dwelling has been converted to a dwelling containing 2 residential units, and that this second unit has already been constructed and completed. We feel that a municipality has a legal obligation to enforce its bylaws. So what is Woodstock's policy on second units? Did this homeowner get permits for this unit? If not, how was this unit built with no permits? How is the city going to find out if proper fire and safety codes have been met? Why was this owner allowed to construct this second unit without a zone change in place? Our next question is, what are the fines for knowingly building a second unit on a property where the zoning does not allow it? By approving this zone change, the council will be setting a precedent for anyone to construct an illegal apartment unit and then ask for approval at a later date, or maybe not at all. Therefore, circumventing the process, knowing that council will consider approving at a later date. This is allowing council and the city of Woodstock to lose control of all neighborhoods in the likely event that more and more homeowners follow suit. How about health and safety issues due to an increase in traffic in our neighborhood and possibly in other R1 neighborhoods as well? If the zone change is approved and the precedent is set. What about the safety of our children as the number of vehicles increase? How about noise and pollution? How will that be handled as it increases? Next issue is parking. In today's society, the average family owns at least 2 vehicles per household. This is very evident as you drive by any residence on Pebble Beach Court, Anderson Street, Fifth Avenue, or other residential areas in the city of Woodstock. We already know that the parking area at this residence has to be decreased as per the engineering department. So where will this increase of vehicles park? What will happen in the winter when the city of Woodstock bylaw does not allow parking on the street due to snow removal? If you were to drive by 54 Pebble Beach Court tonight, you would see that the current tenant alone has 2 vehicles. Bring in another family, and you have just doubled the number of vehicles at one residence. We find this to be a serious concern for the safety of our children and grandchildren. Over the years, when speaking with local real estate agents, we have always been told that the properties in our area have a lesser value than properties in other residential areas in Woodstock. If this zone change is approved, will our properties decrease in value even more? How about property taxes? If the value of our properties decrease even more, is the city willing to decrease our taxes? Furthermore, we ask the question, why bother having a zoning bylaw in place? Why not just allow anyone to build whatever they wish, anywhere they want? Residential bylaws were put in place for a reason and should not be allowed to be changed for someone to make a profit. The city has specific residential zoning areas for this purpose. It is obvious that the homeowners in the area of Pebble Beach Court oppose this zone change, and we ask that you consider our concerns and objections before making your decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions of council? Seeing none, thank you very much. And consideration of delegations. So the report from Carl Harris. Councillor Tate,
Receive as information.
and a seconder. Councillor Fraser. Discussion. You've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. Unanimous. And we'll deal with the other 2 when we get to planning. And for the one that we just heard on 54 Pebble Beach, we actually have a recommendation to defer, so we might not have too much discussion on it tonight, but thank you for the presentation. And our next report is planning. So we have application for zone change for 818 and 820 to 852 Alice. Motion. Councillor Lauder.
I'll move that Woodstock City Council approve the applications for zone change file number ZN 8-19-24 and ZN 8-19-25 submitted by the City of Woodstock and All Street Properties, Inc. for lands described as part of parcel B1, section M13, block B, Plan M13, and Oxford Standard Condominium Plan Number 109 in the City of Woodstock, whereby Part 1 to be conveyed to the city be rezoned from Residential Zone 3 R3 to Active Use Open Space 2 OS2, and Part 2 to be conveyed to All Street Property, Inc., be rezoned from Active Use Open Space 2 OS2 to Residential Zone 3 R3. And further, that any comments received from the public were reviewed and considered before the decision was made in relation to this planning matter.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Accioni. Ms. Hatchler, welcome.
Thank you. So this first application for a zone change is simply to facilitate a recent land swap that took place with the City of Woodstock and All Street Property. All Street Property currently is the owner of the townhouse development located right here, according to the map. And then the city, of course, owns Homer Brown Park. And so what the city and the applicant, or what All Street Property are doing, is they're swapping this strip for this rectangular shaped property or piece of land. And basically what the land swap is facilitating is a historical encroachment that has had parking on it for a number of years that's been associated with the townhouse development. And so recently, my understanding is that the lands changed hands and the new owner wanted to repave the lot and create a number of legal parking spaces that would be associated with the townhouse development. So in order for the city to help the applicant accommodate that, the land swap has taken place. And as such, the zone changes that are before council tonight are simply to rezone the lands so they're consistent with the lands that they're being added to. I hope that makes sense. And then also I should point out that the two pieces of land are identical in size, so they're both 201 square meters. So staff have reviewed the applications and are supportive of them. We feel that the land swap will accommodate parking. It'll actually create more parking spaces for the townhouse development, which we feel is in keeping with the provincial policy statement, as it's supportive of the housing type that the provincial policy statement supports. Additionally, the dwellings are in keeping with the medium density residential designation, and then the open space policies as well for the park. Both the pieces being swapped are consistent with the policies. And so in light of our review, we'd recommend that the application be given favorable consideration.
Thank you. Questions of council? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. Unanimous. And our next one on the agenda is for 54 Pebble Beach Court. Councillor Accioni.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to try this. Move that Woodstock City Council defer the application for lands described as Lot 39, Plan 41M-124 in the City of Woodstock to rezone the subject lands from Residential Zone 1 R1 to Special Residential Zone R2 R235 to facilitate the conversion of an existing single detached dwelling to a converted dwelling containing 2 residential units.
Thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Fraser. Discussion? Seeing none, you've heard, Councillor Lauder.
Just one question through the mayor to our planner. It was interesting, some of the points that the lady had, the speaker had brought up. And so one of that I thought of when she was asking her questions, how did this come to the attention of the planning department? Was it through a building permit, or as she's saying, that, like, how did this happen, that they got the 2 units in there and they're illegal at this point, I guess?
Through the mayor to Councillor Lauder, our understanding is that the unit was established illegally. It did not have a permit. I don't know how it came to the point where they decided to apply for the application. But going forward, if this application were approved, they would have to apply for a permit and get the right approvals from the building department.
Thank you.
Councillor Talbot.
Thank you, Mayor, through to Andrea. Just out of curiosity, in talking with the residents, because the application is deferred, unless they bring the application back, or if they bring the application back, the neighborhood will be notified again, and there'll be another public meeting, or no?
Through the mayor to Councillor Talbot, we have held the statutory public meeting at this point in time, and so generally when an application is deferred, we would not hold a second public meeting. That being said, if council directed staff to hold another public meeting, we would be happy to send out another notice to the neighboring property owners.
Still through to Andrea, so the neighborhood would have no idea that the application had come back amended? Like, they would not be notified through any source of mailings or anything?
Oh, sorry. So I apologize. If the application is amended, so I think maybe what you're referring to is that we're recommending deferral because the driveway is too wide, right? And so yes, if the application came back amended, where the applicant had requested relief from that 50% requirement, then at that point, yes, then the public notice would change and we would resend it out.
But as a deferred motion, it will not come back?
If-
Or like, just to come back the way it is now, will not come back?
Correct.
Thank you.
Further discussion? No? Now, would you like to have something added to it that, with the deferral, that there is recirculation if it comes back? Would you guys be willing to do that as a friendly amendment? Would you, do we need to read the motion again, or can we add that on? You're both agreeable? Yes. Okay. Further discussion? So we'll have it deferred, and if it comes back, it'll be recirculated. All right, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries, unanimous. And the next application for zone change is for 311 Robinson Street. And a motion, Councillor Tate.
I'll move that Woodstock City Council approve the application for lands described as Lot 1, Plan M3 in the city of Woodstock to rezone the subject lands from Residential Zone 1 to Special Residential Zone 1 to ensure the future dwelling is located on the west side of the subject property, and further that any comments received from the public were reviewed and considered before the decision was made in relation to this planning matter.
Thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Schadenberg. Ms. Haschler.
Thank you. So this application for zone change is to rezone the lands from residential zone 1 to special residential zone 1. And then the special provisions are to ensure that the location of the dwelling is as per the second plate that's on the projector right now. So the application for a zone change is basically to satisfy a condition of a recently approved consent application, and it was for a residential lot addition. It was approved by the the Land Division Committee on April 4th, 2019. And so council is just, I think we caused some confusion on Monday night, so council understands these lands were previously severed back in 2007, and the applicant has recently severed this piece and has added it to this one. And so this is entirely one parcel, and the proposal is to rezone the parcel from the R1 to the R1 special, but that only will allow one single detached dwelling on the property. The reason why the zone change has the special provisions, which provide specific setbacks, is to ensure that the building is located here, to make sure that in the future, if all of these lots were to be assembled, that there could be further development of the area. At this point in time, that's not, our understanding is that's not the applicant's choice, or sorry, that's not what their plan is right now. They're just planning to build a single detached dwelling where we have recommended. I should also point out that the previous severance was taken to the Ontario Municipal Board, and it was approved with similar setbacks to ensure that the dwelling would be located in this spot. In light of our review, we would recommend that the zone change is consistent with the provincial policy statement, as the development promotes intensification and provides a mix of housing types. It also is in keeping with the official plan as it's a form of orderly development in a designated settlement area. And we feel that the application is in keeping with the zoning bylaw, and in light of that, we'd recommend favorable consideration.
Thank you. Questions of council? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. Unanimous. And our next application on the agenda is for 1185 to 1201 Devonshire Ave. Councillor Schadenberg.
Yeah, the Woodstock City Council approved the application for lands described as part lots 12 and 13, Plan 1624 in the city of Woodstock, to amend the existing special local commercial zone, which is C1-9, that applies to the property to permit a medical clinic in addition to the existing list of permitted uses, and further that any comments received from the public were reviewed and considered before this decision was made in relation to this planning matter.
Thank you. And seconded by Councillor Fraser. Ms. Hassler.
Thank you. So this application for zone change, as Councillor Schadenberg pointed out, is basically to amend the current C1-9 zoning, and it would just be to add a medical clinic to the list of permitted uses. The applicant has indicated to us that they are proposing a 5 commercial unit plaza, and here's the site plan, 2 of which of the units would be medical clinics. And the total property area is 1.6 acres. It's our opinion that the application is consistent with the official plan policies as the local commercial designation, or sorry, as the non-residential uses in a residential area support medical clinics in these local commercial plazas. And so in light of that, we'd recommend that the application be given favorable consideration. I should point out too that I skipped over this, that it's in keeping with the provincial policy statement as the proposal supports economic development and a mix and range of employment uses. It's also an efficient use of land. As we all know, this piece of land has been sitting vacant for a number of years, and so we feel that this would be a great use for the property.
Thank you. Questions of council? Councillor Schadenberg.
Yeah, through the mayor to our planner, Andrea. I guess my question would be that lot number 13 that looks to be vacant there on the right side of the screen. Could it be possible they could build something in there in the future based on percentages and lot coverage?
I believe I don't have, oh, sorry, through the mayor to Councillor Schadenberg, I don't have, oh, yes, I do. So there is a maximum square footage on the current site, and we've told the applicant that they can only have that one plaza. And so basically what they're proposing at this point in time is the maximum of what they can have. And so the intent is that those 2 sites stay together.
Thank you. Further questions of council? Councillor Fraser.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through to Andrea, it's probably not a fair question, but Lansdowne, Devonshire that's a fairly busy intersection. I'm just looking at the lot plan. It seems that both driveways are pretty close to the corner. Was there any consideration given to in and outs off of that lot? If you go back to your actual lot plan.
Through the mayor to Councillor Fraser, this is an approved site plan, and so where the accesses are shown on this plan is what's been approved by the county engineering department as well as the city engineering department. I'd like to go back to Councillor Schadenberg's question. I just realized that in the report, it actually is, so there's allowed up to 8 units in the plaza, and then the total gross floor area would be 10,000 square feet, so that's the cap.
Councillor Schadenberg.
Probably a comment and then a question for Andrea, as a follow-up. First of all, I noticed in the C1-9 zoning provisions on the zoning on the County of Oxford website that an eating establishment is permitted in that plaza, but not a drive-through. And so that would be if somebody ever wanted to do any kind of a drive-through, they'd have to come back with a change one more time. And the other one was on the list was, we talked about this on Monday night, was the fact that a pharmacy and a health club is in there, but the fact that a medical clinic was not on the list, just to be able to maybe define the differences between that as uses.
So through the mayor to Councillor Schadenberg's questions, I don't have a zoning bylaw in front of me, so I'm going to be a little foggy on some of these details. With respect to the drive-through, I believe that the original intent of making sure that a drive-through was not on there was due to traffic, I believe. And then I think your other questions were that, originally a pharmacy was not permitted, or it was not on the, sorry. It is permitted. So I think at the time it was customized to what was being proposed. And so now they're coming forward with a different proposal. This is a different owner, and so it's changed. And so I think that's strictly the only reason why that occurred that way.
Thank you. Further questions of council? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. And our next application is for 1180 Nellis. And Councillor Lauder.
I'll move that Woodstock City Council support the application to amend the county official plan file number OP 19-04-8 submitted by 1822094 Ontario Inc. for lands illegally described as Block 117, Plan 41M98 in the city of Woodstock to amend the site-specific high-density residential designation to facilitate the establishment of a 6-story residential apartment dwelling house with up to 46 units on the said lands, and further that Woodstock City Council approve in principle the zone change application file number ZN 8-19-10 submitted by 1822094 Ontario Inc. for lands legally described as Block 117, Plan 41M98 in the city of Woodstock to rezone the lands from Special Residential Zone 4 R4-5 to amend the Special Residential Zone 4 R4-5 to facilitate the development of a 6-story residential apartment dwelling house with up to 46 units on the said lands. And further that any comments received from the public were reviewed and considered before the decision was made in relation to this planning matter.
Thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Schadenberg. Ms. Hatchler.
Thank you. So this application for official plan amendment and zone change is to facilitate, as Councillor Lauder pointed out, a 6-story residential apartment building with 46 units. Parking is being proposed on the surface lot, and access is being proposed to Nellis Street. So for council's information, this application, or these lands were formerly part of an official plan, were subject to an official plan amendment and a zone change in 2015. And the intent at the time for the official plan amendment and zone change was to redesignate from low density to high density and to rezone from a special local commercial zone to the special residential zone 4. And that at the time was to facilitate a 5-story apartment building with 29 units. At this point in time, the applicant is simply asking to increase the height of the building by 1 story and obviously to increase the number of units as well. The site-specific zoning provisions that are being requested will reduce the front yard depth, the interior side yard width, landscape open space, and it would also reduce the total number of parking spaces from 76 to 60, and then, as I already indicated, to increase the building from 5 stories to 6 stories. The application has been reviewed by various agencies and staff, and generally all of the comments that we received were positive and in support of the application. Our review, in light of our review, we would say that the application is consistent with the provincial policy statement, as the proposed development is a form of infill housing and it promotes intensification. It's also an efficient use of lands and infrastructure, and it also enhances the mix of housing types in the area, as well as in the city. Due to the existing mix of uses in the area, it's the opinion of staff that the proposed development is appropriate for the area. There's industrial uses to the east, institutional uses to the south, and a mix of residential uses to the north and east, and they would be single semis and townhouses. And then in regard to the traffic, the site has direct access to Lansdowne Street, being a collector road, as well as Nellis Street, which is a minor collector road. Both of these types of streets are designed to handle large amounts of traffic. The proposal is only for 46 units, so in light of that, city engineer or engineering staff did not feel that a traffic impact study was necessary. As the applicant's planner indicated, a parking study was undertaken, and they did an evaluation of a number of apartment buildings in the city, and generally they found that the average observed parking rate was 0.72 spaces per unit, and the maximum was 0.9 spaces per unit. So they recommended that to err on the conservative side, 1 space per unit would be adequate. And so in this case, the applicant's providing 1.3 spaces, which is including the visitor parking. And the bylaw requires 1.5 spaces per unit plus 10% in visitor parking. That being said, staff are supportive of the reduction in the parking requirements, as we have supported this in the past, and to date we haven't noticed a negative impact in apartment buildings that we've supported this in the past. Additionally, the property is located close to a number of schools and parks. It's close to shopping amenities on Dundas Street, all within a kilometer. Plus, there's multiple public transit stops in the area. The proposal also is in keeping with the high density numbers, in that they're proposing 51 units per acre, and the maximum is 60 units per acre. Back when the proposal was originally approved for 5 stories in 2015, that was simply based on a shadow impact study that was done at the time, and we didn't know what the effects would be beyond the 5 stories. So at that time, we recommended to City and County Council that it be capped at 5 stories. But at this point in time, the applicant has submitted a revised shadow impact study for the 6 stories, which is supportive of the proposal, that they don't feel that there will be a negative impact on neighboring properties that would exceed the industry standards. So in light of our review, we'd recommend that City Council support the application for official plan amendment and approve in principle the zoning.
Thank you. Questions of council? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. And that's it for planning. Thank you. And our next item on the agenda is correspondence. Councillor Schadenberg.
That Woodstock City Council endorsed a resolution of the Township of Zora supporting continuation of the mandatory and non-mandatory programs of the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority, and further, the Woodstock City Council circulate support this resolution to the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks, Premier Doug Ford, MPP Ernie Hardeman, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority, and Conservation Ontario.
Thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Fraser. Discussion? Councillor Schadenberg.
I have quite a few notes written here, but I'll keep it much shorter than what I've typed out. I think it's important to note that the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority is only one of 36 conservation authorities around the province of Ontario. So really it does, between the different watersheds, whether it be the Grand River or whatever the watersheds happen to be. It really does cover the entire province of Ontario. And the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority has many integral programs beyond just flood control and of course, watershed management and water quality. Reforestation programs are very important, and floodplain maps, stormwater management approvals, and so much more that they do. Plus, of course, education programs with the youth. I think the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority in this area, as they would be in the authorities in their own specific geographic areas of Ontario, are very significant.
Thank you. Further discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. And next on the agenda is our statement of revenue and expenditures for the period ended August 31st, 2019. Councillor Tate.
I'll move to receive as information.
Thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Accioni. Discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. Unanimous. And next we have an OILC loan. Councillor Fraser.
The Woodstock City Council refer the report regarding the OILC loan to the bylaw section of the meeting.
Thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Lauder. Discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. Unanimous. And then we have the proposed downtown Christmas market. Councillor Fraser.
That Woodstock City Council authorized staff to operate a Christmas market at 474 Dundas Street from November 14th, 2019 to December 21st, 2019.
Thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Accioni. Discussion? Councillor Fraser.
Possibly we could have Len speak to this and explain it so the public understands.
Thank you, Your Worship, through to Councillor Fraser. This is, so just for the audience at home, this is the former Dairy Capital property, which the City of Woodstock now owns. So we're currently maintaining the facility with water, security, etc. And the Ramona Gallagher from the Small Business Center has brought forth this concept in terms of having a Christmas market in that building for a period of time, basically from November 14th to just before Christmas. We're looking at it from the standpoint that hopefully it will generate some activity in our downtown core. I think that Ms. Gallagher already has a number of businesses that she's worked with, that they're looking at this as a stepping stone to getting into a much larger space down the road. So it's a good opportunity to try and help some small businesses that we've already done some work with. And of course, it should also help the profile of the Small Business Center as well. Since the city already owns the building and because we're already paying utilities, et cetera, we don't really see a lot of additional costs to the municipality. So from our standpoint, it's an interesting experiment. We think that we'll have some good success, and we still have a number of details to work out, but we need council approval to move forward.
Councillor Fraser.
Just to continue on with that, is who will take the lead on organizing this in the Small Business Center? And if that's the case, will they advertise the fact that this is going to happen? So I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who might be interested that don't have any knowledge.
Your Worship, through to the question, I suspect that the Small Business Center will largely be the lead. Basically, it's been their idea. And as I mentioned earlier, they have some businesses that they're already working with that they're viewing to go into this facility. Now, that being said, anybody who knows Ramona knows that she partners with everybody. So she'll be happy to work with the BIA and certainly our office in terms of trying to attract some additional tenants, but also to promote the facility for tenants, but also for the general public as well.
Thank you. Councillor Schattenberg.
This market will just be basically operating on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Did I miss that earlier, Len?
Your Worship, through the question, that's correct. Basically, it will operate around the time that the Santa House is operational. So, again, in terms of some synergies, we're hoping that people who are coming to the Santa House will also take the opportunity to visit this market as well.
I know many people in the room were at the Let's Talk Woodstock, or the renewed downtown Woodstock meetings 2 days ago in the second floor of the museum, and one of the things they talked about there was possibility of promoting what they were calling as pop-up shops to help promote being in downtown. So maybe this is a bit of a stepping stone towards that, do you think?
Your worship, through to the question, again, through the Enterprise Center, particularly some of the businesses that they're working with right now, I think that's very much how they're viewing this, that this is, again, kind of a stepping stone to maybe moving out of, working out of their house. This is kind of a short-term attempt to see what the market is, get an idea of what their customer base might be, in the hopes that they will move to perhaps a storefront on their own later on. So definitely a stepping stone for opportunity.
Thank you. Further discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. Unanimous. Next item on the agenda is the purchase of a property at Highway 2 East. Councillor Accioni?
Yes, moved by myself that Woodstock City Council approve the purchase of 685761 Highway 2 East, and that the necessary bylaw be read, and further that the purchase be financed from the Hydro Legacy Reserve Fund and like a recorded vote.
Thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Lauder. Discussion? Seeing none, I'll let the clerk take over.
Thank you, Your Worship. The motion is presented on the floor. Councillor Accioni,
Yes?
Mayor Birch,
Yes.
Councillor Fraser, Councillor Lauder,
Yes?
Councillor Schadenberg,
Yes.
Councillor Tate,
Yes.
and Councillor Talbot. Motion carries unanimous.
Thank you. And the next item on the agenda is the Southwest Oxford boundary adjustment. Councillor Lauder?
I'll move that Woodstock City Council direct staff to proceed with the preparation of the necessary boundary adjustment agreement with the Southwest Oxford, and further that costs incurred as a result of the boundary adjustment process be funded from account number 0170-5115-0519 contingency reserve.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Accioni. Discussion? Councillor Schadenberg?
Yeah, through the mayor, I guess it's more of a comment than anything else, because we've seen a lot of great improvements in the city with redevelopment of existing properties within our boundaries, and to be able to expand our boundaries for residential purposes now beyond what we've already got is a terrific idea, and it's well timed. I want to thank the mayor, Trevor Birch, and also our councillors Connie Lauder and Jerry Accioni for sitting on the committee to go along with the Southwest Oxford Township and the extra working effort they've put into discussions with them and the mayor of Southwest Oxford Township to be able to make this possible.
Further discussion? Seeing none? You've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. Unanimous. And then the procedural bylaw update. Councillor Lauder?
I'll move that Woodstock City Council refer the procedure bylaw update report to the bylaw section of the agenda.
Thank you. And seconded by Councillor Fraser. Discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. And no notices of motion or new business, so the bylaws. Councillor Tate?
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Schattenberg, that the following bylaws be given first and second reading. 9326-19, a bylaw to amend City of Woodstock Municipal Code, Chapter 16, Procedure. 9327-19, a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw number 8626-10 as amended, 311 Robinson. 8328-9, a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw number 8626-10 as amended, Devonshire. 9329-19, a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw number 8626-10 as amended, 818 and 820 to 852 Alice Street. 9330-19, a bylaw to provide for the purchase of certain lands owned by G. Robert Corlett and Catherine Ellen Corlett. 9331-19, a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw number 8626-10 as amended, Ferguson Drive. And 9332-19, a bylaw to authorize the submission of an application to Ontario Infrastructure and Lands Corporation for financing certain ongoing capital works of the Corporation of the City of Woodstock, to authorize temporary borrowing from OILC to meet expenditures in connection with such capital works, and to authorize long-term borrowing for such capital works through the issue of debentures by the County of Oxford to OILC.
Thank you. You've heard the motion. Any discussion? All those in favor? Carries. Unanimous. Councillor Tate?
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Schattenberg, that the following bylaws be given third and final reading, 9326-9, inclusive to 9332-19.
Thank you. You've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries unanimous. And tonight we will start with Councillor Tate.
I just want to comment on the very successful farm show. It was a good turnout, lots of people to the city of Woodstock, and happy to see everybody. That's it.
Thank you. Councillor Schattenberg.
We always talk about the terrific facilities that we have within the city of Woodstock, and we certainly do, but a couple of I want to mention is the Woodstock Curling Club and the Woodstock Badminton Club, which are not owned by the city of Woodstock. The Woodstock Badminton Club is an open house coming up on Saturday, September 28th. From 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. is a badminton open house, and from 2 p.m. until 4 p.m. is a pickleball open house. Of course, they have a great facility with hardwood floors and whatnot at 310 Hunter Street. And for more information, you can call them at 539-1191 about their open house on Saturday, September 28th.
Thank you. Councillor Fraser.
I'd just like to comment that this past Sunday was the Terry Fox Foundation run. I think Woodstock should be proud again. It was a great turnout. I think locally they raised around $28,000 in donations to the Terry Fox Foundation locally. And I'm not too sure, I haven't got the whole tally for across the province, but it's so great to see everybody go out and contribute to such a worthy foundation for research against cancer.
Thank you, and I think I'll add one thing before I forget. Many of the people that were there on Sunday also got to hear from Mr. Calhoun, one of the people who originally helped Terry organize the run, and we heard how he had a little bit of the influence on coming up with the naming of the Marathon of Hope right here from our own community in Oxford County. Councillor Talbot.
Pass, thank you.
Councillor Lauder.
Thank you. This Taste of Art is happening at the Art Gallery this Saturday night from 7 to 10. Come out and enjoy. There's great food supplied by many of our local restaurants and lots of entertainment, so it should be fun. I was at the United Way kickoff tonight, and I have a pamphlet here and the why, but local social issues are hurting our community, and we fight to build a community where poverty, mental illness, and social isolation have no power. So this is their part of what they're out to have supported this year, and they have great ideas of what they want to do. Last night I attended the City Beautiful Awards. I was on that committee to do the judging, and it's quite impressive to go around our city and see all the wonderful gardens and how people really appreciate. And they especially talked about the businesses too, and how much they add to our city. Beautiful, the work that they do, not just the residential. And so they all do provide more beauty into our city. And so I want to thank all those that were nominated, and even there were lots that we looked at that maybe next year they'll come up to be awarded. So it was very interesting to see them. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Accioni.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to send a big, I guess, thank you out to everybody for all your well wishes. It's no secret I did have a bit of an eye issue come up a few days ago, and had some emergency surgery, so I do apologize for a few events that I wasn't able to attend that I did, of course, plan on. Was going a little stir crazy, so I had to get out to council tonight. Just a reminder to the Taste of Art was mentioned, and keep buying your Smile cookies. Great causes around the city, of course, and just stick to your What's on Woodstock magazine for everything that's going on. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, and I have quite a list here tonight, so I guess I'll go back in time to last Saturday. We had several teams from Woodstock at the Dragon Boat Festival in Stratford, including two of my children who did very good job paddling that day, and lots of new hardware brought back to the friendly city from that race. On the same day, I also was able to represent the city at New location for the Power Garage. Of course, they have their newest facility is up there on Montclair near the Walmart Plaza. And I've done a lot of ribbon cuttings over the past few years, usually using a big pair of golden scissors. At this ribbon cutting, I used a Yamaha side-by-side quad to burst through that ribbon, so I'll never forget that one. Now we have a lot of things coming up. We've heard from some of the other councillors. We also have the 17th annual Hike for the Hospice this Saturday. It's at Roth Park at 10 in the morning. I know many people in the community sponsor that each year. Then coming up, we have the Special Olympics Gala reception on the Sunday at WDDS in the Toyota Room. There is also Japan Day coming up at St. Mary's High School on Tuesday, the 24th. And then we will be having the Francophone flag raising ceremony at the French School on Devonshire Ave. Let's see, we also have coming up on the 28th at Southside Park, there will be the dedication of the ship where the Navy League, the Sea Cadets and Navy League cadets meet, and that'll be the dedication that Council had heard about earlier for Commander David Stock. Also going on that same day, we have a huge basketball tournament, all kinds of teams coming here to the Friendly City, and that's taking place at St. Mary's High School. So there's always lots going on in the city, so make sure you follow the city website, the What's on Woodstock magazine, and get out and get involved in your community. And looking for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Fraser, seconded by Councillor Accioni. All those in favor? We are adjourned. Oh, I forgot to say about the fire.